The meeting is being live streamed.
This meeting is being live streamed.
We're good, Joe. We're good. Now you're pointing.
Yeah.
This is our first live stream. Welcome.
Yeah.
We obviously know what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we want to.
And we are live.
We are live. We appreciate you joining in. I think that's the most appropriate entrance ever after watching what we had to watch to end today's Daytona 500. So let me again welcome you all in. My name is Ryan Peters. Here's my green flag. I don't care about it anymore. I'm joined with Joe Spillman. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. That was a Titanic mess up. I had feedback going in on our live stream and everything. It's great. Live and learn, live and learn.
That's the smartest we can do as a technician is Joe. And then I'm joined by Steve Risley. Steve, how are you doing this evening?
I've lost everything and everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you. We can see you.
I can't see you.
Well,
That's not terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be a blessing. No, we can see you, Steve. Again,
Okay.
we appreciate you. Go ahead.
No. If you can see me, that's fine.
Okay. Well, again, this is our first attempt trying to do this live stream. I promise we will get better, or we could be Daniel Suarez and we might just get worse. Who knows?
Jeez.
But we do want to thank you for joining us again, the Daytona 500, the kickoff to this year's NASCAR season. Well, I'm a Kyle Busch fan, and I'll tell you who I'm not a fan of, and that would be one Daniel Suarez. Looked like this race was getting ready to be in hell. Kyle Busch's first ever championship at the Daytona 500, and a single car spin out in the grass by Daniel Suarez with 2 laps to go. Decided that wasn't going to be. But overall, I thought it was a really good race. You know, I thought at the beginning and the middle, we had some good racing. There was a lot of lead changes. The only thing I could say, and if you're joining us again from where we moved over from, you're going to hear us talk about the broadcast and what was the commercial 500 for the first 2 stages. And as Joe texted the group, the first wreck we had the entire time, we were losing it due to the fact that there was a Liberty Mutual commercial. I guess well put, good timing by Liberty Mutual. You don't have to use coverage you don't need to pay for while $600,000 cars are being torn apart as they do not decide to cut back. But my initial thoughts, I thought it was a good race. I hated the ending. You know, I felt like I watched a really, really good movie. And then like at the end of it, they scrolled across and said everybody died. And I was like, oh, that sucks. So that's my thoughts. Steve, I'll kick it off to you. What did you think about this year's Daytona 500?
First word that came to my mouth was attrition. But I and the next word would be overabundance of commercials, as you already brought up. So I won't beat that dead horse. But yeah, it just was for some reason. Apparently, they said toward the end this was the longest Daytona in the history of 500s, Daytona 500s, due to yellow laps, they said, or caution flags and overtimes, and attrition. It just a silly ending to, I don't know, attrition. I don't know what to say.
That's kind of your job on the show.
My guy got knocked out. My guy got knocked out halfway through the race.
If we're gonna do a YouTube live, we got to have something to say.
Okay.
To be fair to you, Steve,
yeah,
it is a different 500 when your guy gets knocked out like really early, because then you kind of get your anger out of the way, and then you're like, I don't really give a damn who wins because your guy.
I had to pick somebody else to win, otherwise I was gonna turn it to golf or something. So I had to pick somebody else to win. I made an easy pick. I took the 8 car. At that point was my new guy,
So
and he was going good for a while until Suarez popped his head up into the picture. And, it's typical Daytona. It's what you know is going to happen. And you kind of started rooting for the older guys, or I did. You know, you saw, what's his name? Keselowski up there up front. You saw Truex up front. You saw Kyle up front. You thought, you know what? now that Chase is out, let's give it to one of these old guys and get them their win. They all deserve to have a win there. And you really started rooting for the older guys. And like I said, then all hecky darn broke out and broke loose, and you get what you got. So I'm not going to surprise. I'm not going to announce the ending. I don't want to ruin the surprise for anybody that hadn't watched the race and depending on us to give them a play-by-play, lap-by-lap breakdown.
Well, we will announce actually tonight's winner here in just a few seconds, but I just want to get your guys' opening thoughts. Joe labeled this the Pepto-Bismol 500 after what happened to him when it comes to his gambling picks. Joe, what was your overall thoughts about the race?
Well, I mean, it was a typical Daytona first stage, right? Almost lulled you to sleep. Most of the second stage almost lulled you to sleep. Drivers were really trying to do the best that they could to stay into this race, not get caught up in anything. And we had pretty clean racing for about a stage and a half. Then we get into the third stage, people start to make their moves, get down to the final 20 laps, all hell breaks loose. Get down to the final 2 laps, and Daniel Suarez decides to forget how to drive a race car. Screws Kyle Busch for the second time this week. I think Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon had that one. But as it turns out, we got some really exciting racing at the end. And if we don't have a Daytona 500 where my stomach turns and I don't go out in the front yard and throw up afterwards, I don't know what we would be doing today. So great Daytona 500, great race. Had me on the edge of my seat, especially that final stage. And really at the end of the day, that's all you can ask for. Kyle Larson, I was pulling for him there too as well. And he hit the wall hard. One thing I will critique Fox about, well, we could critique the entire race coverage. Like I said, the side-by-side, whatever, if you're going to go to the commercial, if you're going to show a NASCAR race, you shouldn't be able to go show a commercial without doing the side-by-side. If you have that ability, don't take away the race screen. And my God, if you're running the Daytona 500 and you have the first wreck of the day, the first notable wreck of the day, cut away from your commercials. I know the commercials pay the bills, but at the end of the day, people aren't going to watch if they can't watch the race. So they got to get better at that. But that's my reaction, I guess.
Well, they are discussing a new deal, Joe, where in 2024, the media deal does it expires for both Fox and NBC. But like I said, if you are veterans of watching the three of us talking about Fox's coverage is definitely not going to be something new to you.
Right.
And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's gotten a lot better. Because like you said, I know a lot of people were like, the funny thing is there was a caution, and then I think it was 55 laps in. They did a caution, come back from the caution. They ran 2 laps. At 57 laps, they go, right. Toyota sponsored this to where we don't have to go to break. And I'm like, it was 2 freaking laps.
I remember that.
Then after that, then after that, they cut away and didn't show the race while they talked about Toyota sponsors.
I know. We watched them all drive around under yellow for God knows how many laps. And then they finally get to race again, and they break away to not a split screen commercial, but a full commercial. So, the coverage had a lot to be desired to improve upon. And I made notes of that that may have been the most disappointing thing of the day for me, truly, was the coverage of the race. The race itself, you kind of expect silly things to happen at Daytona and Talladega. Ricky Stenhouse has been around long enough that he deserves as much as anybody a win in a crazy race like that. But good golly, Miss Molly, the coverage of the race itself is really, truly pathetic. And I don't know if NASCAR wants, I don't think they want to continue with the coverage that way. Maybe they do. I guess the more commercials they put on, the more money NASCAR makes. So what do I know?
Well, Steve, you mentioned Ricky Stenhouse being the winner. So let's go ahead and look at the top 10, and we'll just kind of break it down from there, and I'll get your guys' opening reactions. So, and this is actually the first time I looked at it since Kyle wrecked, and I found out he was in 19th, and I didn't throw things. Ricky Stenhouse gets first place. Joey Logano finishes second. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. Christopher Bell kind of fought an up and down race. Chris Buescher was consistent pretty much the whole day. Alex Bowman comes from nowhere. He starts on the pole, literally did nothing throughout the most of the race, and then finds himself in the top 5. I don't know how that happened. AJ Allmendinger gets 6th place after starting the wreck or being part of that wreck at the end, but was not penalized for being part of the wreck. And this is where craziness happens. Daniel Suarez, again, with 2 laps to go, spins out by himself, somehow gets 7th place. Ryan Blaney's car was losing parts of it as it was going down the track. He lost his entire tire as he was going down the track at one point, not the wheel, the tire. So he didn't get penalized for it. Ross Chastain had an up and down day. And then Riley Herbst tried to get on pit road and wrecked himself. And NASCAR said, hey, we saw you spin out. That's also a commitment violation. You're going to get black flagged for spinning out coming across pit lane. And he finds himself in 10th. So there's your annual top 10 for a Rick Ware car. So go yourself, Riley Herbst. That's ridiculous. But there you go. I mean, just absolute craziness in this entire top 10. You know, Ricky Stenhouse didn't do a lot at the front, which kind of surprising because Ricky Stenhouse is a good, super speedway driver. I don't think any of us were surprised that Ricky Stenhouse had an opportunity to compete for the win. It's just the way that this race played out. But out of those drivers, Joe, I'll lead it off with you on that one. Is there anybody that, surprised or disappointed you in that top 10 or, anything about that?
This might be a something that you guys don't agree with, but I'm okay with that. I'm actually disappointed that Ricky Stenhouse got the win in this race. I feel like, and I won't call this backing into a win. He worked his way up there. He was up near the front to be in position to win at Daytona. But, it kind of, I think somebody came over Kyle Busch's radio, or maybe Kyle Busch said it during the race when, overtime happened. He said in 98, that would have been a win.
It was Kyle Busch.
It was Kyle Busch.
I do think that the overtime is good for NASCAR. I don't want to complain about that. I'm not going to complain about that. However, at the end of the day, this race got extended, and I don't think that the best car won this race. And really, I think that NASCAR, and I understand we discussed this at length last year, and I think we even argued about it, about how does NASCAR determine who's a winner when the caution comes out. And, clearly, if you go back and watch that, Joey Logano was in front when that wreck happened. He was in front, a few milliseconds after it happened, but it wasn't timed that way, and Stenhouse got the win. I'm not a Joey Logano fan, but I think that Joey Logano was out front when the wreck happened. I think when the determination for the caution to come out, Joey Logano was out front, and I don't feel okay with Stenhouse winning this race.
Also, shout out to Joey Logano for purchasing a new rug to put on his head. So
where'd that come from?
Some off-season work. Gene Katie, I think, as maybe Steve found a way to ship that out to Cat. I knew that would.
Jeez,
I got that one.
Steve, you saw the top 10. What are your initial thoughts from what we've seen?
I had 3 things that came to mind. One is, first off, humorously, the top 10 tells me with half the people that finish in the top 10, you got to be in a wreck to be involved in the top 10 at the end of Daytona. Okay, because looking at half the cars in there, half of them were tore up and wrecked before they got to the last 2 laps. Secondly, I think in all seriousness, you better start watching out for the killer bees. And I'm talking about Bowman, Buescher, and Bell. I think those guys are going to make some impact all season long. What are you taking? Do I get negative points now?
No, you gained a point because I did not think Ryan Blaney made it into the top 10.
Oh, I got 1.
Oh, good job, Steve.
All right. So I'm only,
I just looked at his car and assumed that it was done, but that's really stupid.
Well, I did too. I saw him up there, but I thought he was involved in a wreck. He had to be 20 laps down, just running with the leaders. And here he is. He's on the lead lap. It probably all happened during a commercial, Ryan.
Probably right.
He probably gained his laps back during a commercial.
Yeah, during a commercial.
Yeah, that we didn't see him gain his laps back. So you got to watch out for the killer bees, because I'm gonna tell you what, those guys are going to be dangerous all year. You can bet as we go on picking, I'm looking at the killer bees now, especially Bell and Busher. Those guys are dangerous, and they've got good equipment this year.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to, Steve.
Yeah.
Since we got to pick somebody in the top 45 now that's going to wreck out every race because of Ryan's rules.
And yeah, and I kind of like what Kyle said about the overtime thing. It's almost like, I don't know what to say about the overtime, because 2 laps is just breeding these wrecks. And it's breeding them on a lot of tracks now, because you already have the heat races where some people want to win a heat because they don't think they can win the race, but they can gain some points in the heat races. So you got scrappiness going on there, and potentially taking some cars like an Elliott or somebody who's got a strategy of saying, you know what, I'm good enough, I can just win these races. Yet he gets caught up in a melee. It's nothing to do with him. He's in the middle of the pack running 15th or 16th, minding his own business, and he gets caught up and taken out completely. I think Elliott finished dead last, didn't he?
No, Ty Dillon did.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
so that's right. Ty Dillon went out. So Elliott was set at 39.
I think he was a little higher than that. There was a couple of cars that had some issues.
Okay.
And there was a couple smaller
Well,
wrecks that
Elliott
happened
went right
before.
back to the garage. He never even tried to repair his car.
Yeah,
He
he
looked
said,
at it and
Alan said,
rear-ended.
come down. Yeah. Alan said, come down. And he goes, no point.
No point. Yeah, it's done. So, and then when you get a 2-lap shootout, and especially at a track like Daytona, you're asking for what you got. And like Joe said, that's a winner who, I don't want to take anything away from Stenhouse, but I don't think he deserved to win that race either. And that's too prestigious of a race. It's too prestigious of a race in that sport, in all of auto racing. The Daytona 500 is up there with Monaco and Indianapolis. I mean, it's on that plane. And you can rank them individually how you want to, and we all have different opinions what fits where, but it's still on that plane. And to have 2 laps of a 200-lap race determine the outcome and the winner of that race, I think needs to be re-examined at best. And, you know, at the super speedways, if you're going to do a shootout, gosh, maybe try a 5 or a 6 or a 7-lap shootout, not a 2-lap where it's helter-skelter. You know, cars are trying to get up to speed. They're all over the place. They're squirrely. They're not at full downforce, and you're racing like hell without the total weight of the downforce on these cars giving them the best grip. You're usually on light fuel load and, you know, cold tires or worn out tires. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
And
But that's what people
ahead.
watch. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
that's what, again,
that's why people
that's what
watch.
NASCAR wants, and that's what
Yeah.
people watch. Yeah.
It also plays into the society that we live in now with instant gratification, because at the end of the day, us 3 sat and we watched the Daytona 500 for 330 miles and 4 hours of our life.
530 miles.
Not including the 2 pre-race
I
shows
said
I watched.
530 miles.
I mean, remember,
I'm sorry. I thought you said 300. My apologies.
No, I might have. I've been having many strokes on air here lately, so I don't know. I meant 530. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we would have just tuned in for the last 4 laps of regulation racing,
we'd have seen
and then the overtime, we would have seen the most exciting part of the day. So,
right.
You know, it plays into instant gratification. And I wish there was a way that we could actually see like the analytics on how many people were watching at the start of the race as opposed to, you know, the last 5 laps of regulation and overtime. Because I know, and I don't know if you guys got it, but when it went to overtime, my phone went off. I got an ESPN alert or a Fox Sports alert, maybe, that NASCAR was going into overtime. So that's going to bring in viewers, but that's exactly what people want to see. That's what makes it exciting. But I don't disagree with you, Steve, that, you know, at the end of the day, you go ahead and and make it more than 2 laps. I'd hate to see that on a road course, because really, if it was a 5-lap shootout, Recky Spinhouse isn't winning today.
No,
because
and
he ran
just
out
on
of
the Super
gas.
Speedway. That's
Yeah.
just on the Super Speedway. Give them more than 2 laps.
Right.
You know, on at Bristol or at Loudon, you know, 2 laps is plenty.
Right.
You know, at Kansas City, 2 laps is plenty. At where they're going at Auto Club next week, 2 laps is plenty. But on a track like that, where there's so much componentry going to getting those cars up to speed, and as I said, getting the full force, the downforce, allowing those cars to do what they do on that track, you need more than 2 laps.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I can't disagree. But I could see the argument against it. I just, like I said, I hate to see, it was an exciting race. I think I'm just more tore up just for full disclosure of who won the race, other than the way it finished, because I do think it was an exciting race. I have to put that out there. So
yeah.
maybe I'm being a homer a little bit. I'm just upset with the result, I guess.
Ryan, I'm going to just ask a question, but you may already have this in the agenda. The damn choose line turned out to probably be part of the cause.
Yeah, that's a great, Steve.
So Ryan, you may already have that we're going to discuss later on. The choose line, they looked like it was a bad idea in the end. Allowing them to choose. And if you want to address it now, I'll leave that up to you.
Well, I'm going to first
give your opinion.
I'm going different than you two guys first. So, and number one, I'm going to defend Ricky Stenhouse. So that's a caution flag.
Yeah, I have no opinion.
If I get abducted by aliens or something, it's because of this, what I'm about to say.
He's a product of the results of that race. I mean, that's just how that race goes.
He worked his way up to get to the point to where he had a chance to win. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, do I want somebody else to win? Yeah. You ain't going to find me more happy if Joey Logano wins. I will say that. You know, I think Joey Logano is a more proven race car driver as a whole, but, you know, Ricky Stenhouse has shown what he can do on super speedway. This ain't his first win when it comes to winning on a super speedway. So I'm not shocked by it. The only thing that I would change about the overtime rules or about cautions in general is I like the day when we got to race back to caution to the start flag when there was a caution. And how possible is that today? That wreck happened in the first turn. I don't know. So I just don't know how realistic that is. If you're talking about making a 4 or 5 lap race and you guys think that might help the ending, well, I'm telling you this, half the field would have had to pitted. And then we're talking about who does pit, who doesn't pit, does anybody take tires? So then you're, again, altering the possibility of that race changing. Yeah. Who would have won? Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski because they pitted. So they easily would have won while everybody else would have ran out of gas. So, I mean, there's just different things that happen. And again, I think that the common theme that we're all saying is we sat there for 4 hours, watched what we thought was a good product, and then we got a really bad ending. And, you know, and that sucks because you don't want to sit there and invest your time into something that you don't think, you know, ended the way you wanted or would have liked it. At the end of the day, they could have raced it all out and Ricky Stenhouse still could have won. I think that's a realistic option, you know, but it is what it is. And, you know, Ricky Stenhouse is in the playoffs. So
yeah, he said we're going back to 16 drivers in the playoffs again this year.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I said, good God, Ricky Stenhouse is the first driver in the playoffs. We're going to have 16 drivers again this year with a win.
Yeah, but like last year as a rookie in Austin Cindric. I mean, this is what super speedway racing is. It's a gimmick that's a product of entertainment that has nothing to do with whoever the best car is on that day, more often than not. It's to be exciting, and that's whenever they're not showing Liberty Mutual commercials that you can actually get to watch cars 1 through 36 less than 2 seconds behind. And, you know, and that's what we got. Now, I will say this, and this, I never heard this except during all 3 races this week. And that was when NASCAR presses the caution button, that's when they freeze the field. Now, we did go at length through these discussions last year because it was the timing lines whenever they decided to go that. And they were all over the track and whatever. And we were always bitching about, well, why can't they just stop it right then and there? You know, they have cameras everywhere. There's no reason for it. Well, now I guess they do decide to do that. And I never heard that as a rule change. I never heard one person say that, but they're like, as soon as the button is pressed, then that's when the caution comes out. As a Kyle Busch fan, Kyle Busch was spinning in fifth place, fifth place.
I thought he was in third when he spun.
Bell was in front of him. Bell was in front of him.
So Bell, so he was fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the exact same thing you did. Wait a minute. They froze the field right when the caution is thrown. The 8 car was much higher than they gave him credit for.
He got 18th. He got 18th place.
Yeah.
If you're going to freeze the field, then freeze the field. Like, don't. Some guys get frozen, but some guys don't get frozen. I didn't really understand that. And again, I'm a homer when it comes to that. So
we have a couple comments, and apologize. We're not at the point where we can put them up on screen yet. We're getting there. But Heather Hall says, I'm also very confused. What happened? Some technical rules. So I think she's asking, what happened with the positioning at the end of the race.
Well, the only thing I can think of is at the end of the race, do you have to cross the start finish line to get credit?
No, it's if you get
logic was that
if NASCAR determines you're part of the wreck,
right,
then that's where the finish is from all the people in part of the wreck and where they were there for. Now, Denny Hamlin was part of the wreck, but he had the opportunity to keep driving forward, like you said, Steve. Then he'd have been fine. But since Kyle Busch was going backwards, I guess that doesn't count as, he got part of the wreck, which it's crazy because AJ Allmendinger hit him. He was part of the wreck, but I guess since he didn't turn around, he doesn't get that same exact type of, rule.
Dinger finishes what, 6th or 7th or something?
5th. He finished 5th.
Fifth. Okay. Yeah.
Which actually helped me out in my lineups. And then Daniel Lacey.
Shut up, Joe.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Lacey also says, he commented and said, and I think we're about to get into this, Daniel, but the drivers made a bad decision with the choose line. And I agree.
And I guess since I'm the diehard Kyle Busch homer, and Joe, we talked about this off air, and Steve, I'm sure you feel the exact same way, completely blown away that 2 teammates would decide to separate and then decide to go to the lower line as the line of choice whenever Austin Dillon halted the line by braking. I just couldn't believe that. I think at the end of the day, you want to put yourself in a position to where you have 1 and 2. There's too many variables that can go wrong, and you're putting yourself in the worst line because Austin Dillon could have went up with him back in the day without the choose rule. Then they would have been 1 and 2. But with what we had tonight, they could have went both up at the top, and Austin Dillon would have pushed. Now, you set somebody up like Byron, who ends up starting that entire wreck, screws Larson, like you're talking about, Joe, in that turn. I just did not understand it when the top line had been so strong the entire race. And we saw that with Ricky Stenhouse. The top line is what gave him essentially the win because it had just enough push coming out of turn 1 than all the other times that we've seen it. And, I thought it was bad strategy. And at the end of the day, they got 19th and 33rd as their reward. So, it was a bad choice. I understand the thought process. I just don't think it was able to be executed the right way. So, and again, we have hindsight and definitely think it's a bad choice.
And maybe I'm just repeating exactly what you said, but as far as Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch, with the strategy being that Austin Dillon was going to essentially slow down and let Kyle Busch out front. I think it was a horrible decision because what we saw was Austin Dillon essentially lose all his momentum by letting off the gas, and it backed up the entire line, and it caused, in my opinion, caused that wreck.
He couldn't push the 8 car. Then.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and then Joey never has to let off the gas. The top line never has to let off the gas. Like you're saying, Joe, Austin has to get up to gas because he intentionally is slowing the bottom down. Then the bottom's not going to have that same momentum.
No.
So whenever the wreck happens, they're already 4 or 5 spots behind, and that's what changed the entire outcome of that race. That's why Joey got to fight for a win, and Ricky Stenhouse did, and Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon ultimately get involved in wrecks.
He basically left the 8 car hung out to dry when he went low. Yeah, he just left them hung out to dry.
But that had to be strategy. That Richard and everybody else had to be a part of that.
Fox is showing pictures. Fox is showing pictures of Richard Childress up there in his white press shirt. I'm thinking, I hope you have headphones to your crew chiefs telling them, line them up 1 and 2, line them up behind each other and take the high line and push it. And then if you want to have the 8 and the 3 duke it out in the last 10 yards, that's fine.
Right.
At that point, I don't care, but assure yourself you're getting 1 and 2.
Right.
I mean, it is a money sport. Okay. There is how much money did they lose? Plus they wrecked 2 cars. So that was an expensive decision by RCR to do what they did. It cost them prize money and it wrecked 2 cars. So
Steve, you want to see my reaction to what I did when they chose those 2 positions?
Let's see.
I'm going to give you the exact reaction from sitting on my couch. What the hell are you doing?
And if that was your reaction, not being a Kyle Busch fan, you can only imagine what mine was.
When I saw the 8 car or the 3 car go low, I just went, "Uh-oh, this is not going to be good."
I didn't get it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was a colossal failure. And I think back to this, guys, and this type of track, and you have to have a friend to win more often than not. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind was Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr. No way in hell would they have separated. There's just not a chance. If they had the opportunity to, they would have stacked up with each other and said, hey, we're going to push. We're going to either get Little E the victory or Michael Waltrip's going to be there, if the other side takes a hold of it, because one of them's going to block and one of them's going to win. That's just the way you have to do it. And you set yourself up when neither one could do either one, because Joey Logano on the top line was going 8, 10, 15 mile an hour faster than the bottom one was. So you couldn't block. And then you let them go around you and you set yourself up. Like you said, the accordion effect, all these guys get stuck together and, chaos happens. And, and this had to be organized because somebody's got to tell Austin Dillon, hey, you got to let Kyle get down. So if you're organizing it to the point where you got to say, hey, you got to let Kyle get down, just go, hey, let's go to the top and win this damn thing.
Well, it did reaffirm one thing for me when seeing all that happen. There are no team orders in NASCAR. Because I'm not a rocket surgeon, and I would have told the 3 car to line up behind the 8 car.
Yeah, I think that was the team strategy, Steve. I think that was directed by the teams. I don't think that those.
I don't know. I think their plan was to take the whole front row. I think that was planned.
Bad decision.
No. We're validated by the results of the race.
Right.
It was the decision, Steve, to take the front row, but the role, what was supposed to happen, and it did, was Austin Dillon was to purposely slow down, and then Kyle come down.
But you can't do that in the super speedway, Ryan. You know that because
I agree with you. I said
the 3 cars got to wind up speed, and if you brake for a millisecond and let the 8 car in front of you, you're dead.
I'm not contending it was the right call. I'm contending it was team orders. It was team orders for that to be the strategy. But it was just a god-awful strategy.
If you and I know that, don't you think 2 highly paid crew chiefs and a team owner knows that too?
Yeah, that's a good question.
We really can't do this, guys, because if we let Austin just delay by a half a second, he's dead in the water. Yeah. He's no help to the 8 car to Kyle Busch at all. He's dead.
To that same point, Steve, there's a reason RCR hasn't won anything since Kevin Harvick's been there.
There you go.
Maybe it's decisions like that.
Well, no, Dylan's got a Daytona win.
He does. He also has an almost death at Daytona as well. So.
Yeah.
Well, hey, before we
the choose line. Before we get off that the restart. What's everybody's thought on the choose line and being able to choose at a super speedway? Should it happen or not?
I love it. I like I like putting more control in the driver's hands.
Okay.
No, I can't. I like it too. I think if the right strategy was played by RCR today, they would have came home with the Daytona 500 win. Well, no, they probably wouldn't have. Actually,
they would have had more of a shot.
They'd have more of a shot. But I still think that probably goes to 3 or 4 overtimes anyway, because everybody from 6th to 10th is trying to get in a position to make a run. So at the end of the day, I like it, but I don't know if we would have had a different outcome today either way. So
well, we would not. Well, okay, I got this is my opinion on it. I'm going to use an anecdote real quick. You know what the biggest bitch in golf is? I don't know how much you guys play. I play when I was healthy. I'm going to just bought new clubs last week, so I'm getting ready to get back on the course. But you know what in golf, what the biggest bitch is in golf?
Trees.
No,
No
you
idea.
can't repair divot holes on the green, on the fairways.
Hmm.
And if you hit the ball in the same general way, you'll end up getting a spot in the fairway where there's just hundreds of or thousands of divots, depending on how much, and then your ball invariably will end up in a piece of unrepaired ground. And it ruins your shot going into the green. Okay. Now, you would think that'd be an easy fix. Okay. We're going to allow you a free drop out of a divot. Okay. But they don't change that rule. That rule's been in place since rules of golf were made. All right. So I think that the choose line overall is a stupid rule. I think you just go back to the way it was and say, first place takes the pole position, second place outside front row. That's just the way it goes. It worked for how many years? It worked for 70, 72 years, 70 years in NASCAR. In the last 5 years now, they've had a choose line. Okay. And now you get melee chaos. You get a guaranteed win by somebody because they took in a mile and a half track, the outside line is the better line. We all know that. Pushing and drafting isn't as important. So it just kills the end of the race. But we know the guy that takes that's on that line is going to win. Instead of the faster car being in the pole position, the second fastest car being on the outside front row, now we may have a race. So I personally just think get rid of the choose line, period, on any track. Go back to the original rules of the sport. That's one rule they should have never put in the sport.
What's awkward about that is it was actually brought in by Austin Dillon. So he's the person that wanted that rule to happen. And it comes from dirt racing, but so it is still a part of dirt,
the ass,
part of racing. Yeah. I mean,
it's
it's a part of racing. It's just never been NASCAR. Now the leaders always have the opportunity to choose high or low, but not everybody else. But moving forward, getting to the end of this, I always ask this question to you guys, and you can answer however you want. Did you think it was a good race? And Joe, I'll start with you.
I did. I was, at the end of the day, when you watch a sporting event and you get to spark emotions like I had today, and of course I did put a little bit of money on the line. I mean, I didn't put up a huge amount of my own money, but I had the potential to win a big amount of money, which really made it exciting. I mean, everybody that was watching that race was on the edge of their couches at the end of the race. No matter who your favorite driver is, it was an incredibly fun race to watch at the end. I think that you have to be, I think where NASCAR's at right now is if you tune in to see the last 50 laps of a race at any place, you're going to be thoroughly excited. Where we're at as NASCAR and NASCAR as a whole and fans is, stage 1 through 2 right now with the only time you ever see any action is when somebody makes a mistake or somebody loses a tire or has a mechanical problem. And it does get very boring. Stage one through 2 or half of 2 was that today. It almost lulled you to sleep, but at the end of the day, it was a great race, exciting finish. Anything that I have bad to say is just simply my own opinion and my own emotions, not wanting the driver to win that won, but it was a great race.
Steve, I'll ask you the same thing. Did you enjoy the race?
Yeah, I did. I think they even announced on TV, said it was the most lead changes they'd had in the last 5 years of any race in terms of drivers getting in the lead. I thought everybody was racing clean for the most part. I think some of the wrecks were caused by aero more than anything, getting up on somebody's bumper and either tapping it slightly, taking the air off the rear tires. I mean, I don't think there was any malicious intent on any of the early wrecks. Even when Elliott went out, it wasn't malicious. It's just somebody got too close and caused aero problems for the rear end of the car, and the car slid out from under him. The rear slid out. But I think, yes, it overall, and like I said, I'm ambivalent about Ricky Stenhouse. I'm happy for him. He's not who I would have picked, but I can't be angry or upset like you would be if Cody Ware won. Absolutely. Yeah. So and I'm not that upset. It's the nature of the product that Ricky Stenhouse won that race. He was in the right place at the right time, which 50% of the time, that's how Daytonas end up. Somebody ends up being. Sometimes we get a Hamlin or a driver who's driven an exquisite race and won it and done that. But and half the time we get a Ricky Stenhouse who stays out of trouble, filters his way around. Attrition takes place. He slowly slides up through whatever reason, and then bingo bango, right at the end, he happens to be at the right place at the right time. So I enjoyed the race. I enjoyed the start of the season. I think they could do away with the grid walk all entirely. It's atrocious.
I agree. I sent you a text about that.
Who, me?
No, I sent Ryan a text about
Ryan a text. Okay. I didn't get copied on that one, but that's okay. I probably would have had some stupid comment. So yes, I enjoyed the entire day. The season has started, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
We are off and running. Here we go. Coming out to my neck of the woods. The track is about 45 minutes due east of where I live, and I'm not going to go.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, before you give your opinion, Heather Hall commented back, and she said, "Thanks for the insight. I'm just trying to learn the rules after living here in Daytona for 20 years. Wonderful comments."
Well, Heather, we appreciate you tuning in, and any questions that you guys have. And again, this is an opportunity for you. If you would like to, be a part of this, like, subscribe, you can share this out to your friends. And, for any of you first-time listeners or first-time enjoyers of the sport, you're going to watch people that enjoy this, as much as anybody. 3 people that are absolutely invested, literally from the god-awful grid walk to an unfortunate finish, not halfway in between and everything else. We're here from the beginning to the end.
Heather, when he's talking subscriptions, don't worry. Ryan's the only one of the 3 of us that gets paid for doing this.
I get paid as much as you guys do.
Joe and I get nothing, and we'll like it.
No, nobody gets paid. We do this because we love the sport, Steve.
I know. Ryan makes twice what Joe and I make, which is 0.
That's right. Hell, 10 times.
Well, 10 times more. Ryan, let's hear what you thought about the race.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I thought it was a good race. I liked it. I think, Steve, you said the right thing. It was attrition. And again, it shows that no matter what you do, and we did just get a new subscriber. So thank you, Mr. Porter.
Or C. Porter, I assume there.
Mr. Miss Z. I don't care what you are. Thank you. But I also want to say that, attrition, Steve, is the right word. Mm-hmm. No strategy worked today. Hanging out in the back didn't matter. Rex started back there. Trying to be in the middle of the pack didn't matter. Rex ended the beginning of that race. Wanted to be out front. Rex happened there too. I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason for what happens at Daytona. But I was pleased with it. I thoroughly enjoyed today's race. I thought it was a really, really good one from the beginning to the end. You're not it was too wide almost the entire time. Literally the first time it got single wide was when Kyle was in the win and an opportunity to win it. And, and that's maybe why I enjoyed that part of it too. But it just was a great time. I'm so happy that the season's here. And I think with Ricky Stenhouse winning, guys, it's going to show. It's anybody's race any single weekend. It doesn't matter. If you got it tuned in that week and you're on your A game that week, you have a chance to make the playoffs. And I think every single driver should be, really, really focused and say, I probably got to win to get in again, unless they make some crazy rule at the end for Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex or some crap like that, like they did last year. I'm probably going to have to win to get in because these cars, they're racy. It don't matter where they're at. They're racy. And if you have a good week, you got a chance to win. Or hell, if you're Daniel Suarez, you can spin out and cause everybody else absolute grief and still get a top 10 freaking month.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing that I caught today, if that's okay, Ryan?
Go ahead.
I thought that we saw a lot of our younger drivers, the Bushers and the Bells, start driving more like KG veterans. Like they're going to be the new Harvicks and Truexes and Hamlins come here pretty soon, if they aren't already now.
Steve,
I thought we saw a lot of maturity out of those guys. Bowman, the 24 car. We saw guys that were flash in the pans kind of last year that would come up and then they disappear for a few races. I got the feeling you're going to see all of Bowman and Butcher and Bell that you want to see this year. And those three guys are going to be contending for a championship before it's all said and done this year.
Steve, I'm starting to have a problem.
Okay.
I, on the bold prediction show, said that Christopher Bell would win the most races and the championship. And I feel
I'm
like you're
agreeing
trying
with
to
you.
no, I think you're trying to be president of the fan club.
Oh,
and my ass is saying that you haven't even bought a membership yet. So don't challenge the president of the fan club for Christopher Bell.
Yeah.
No,
I
agree
humbly
with you.
submit my apologies, but go ahead, Joe.
No, I, if we're talking about that, I have to reevaluate one of my statements from the bold prediction, and I didn't think that Ford was going to do well this year. And man, all week they've kind of slapped me in the face with that comment. I'll tell you that, because they look really good this weekend.
They always do at Daytona.
You're right.
Do.
Before I outright apologize for that comment or say that I was wrong, we're going to see them on some short tracks and some mile and a half before I recant that statement.
Yeah, that's when Ford will have made gains on Chevy and Toyota.
Right.
Is if they can pull off what they did today on non-aero package tracks.
Yep.
Where the aero package is so damn strong. Ford has the aero for super speedways better than anybody. And Hendrick always seems to get the poles, but to me, what Hendrick does is they tune their cars for speed. And then they don't really worry about the twin 125s. And then when they can work on their cars again, they put a race package on them.
Yeah, that's
so
what they did this week.
That's Mr. Hendrick wanting to own the pole with his cars. That's gimmicky as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Joe, before we close out, do you have any other comments from the chat?
Yeah, Mr. Daniel Lacey said the grid walk was trash. And I love talking about NASCAR, and we agree. And then Lee Ving said, pro racers look like fools. How was that a good watch? Well, I think, some people might not think that's a good watch, especially if your driver didn't do well because of the overtime. But I thought it was a good race.
I think drivers have nothing to do with it. This is what NASCAR wants. If drivers had anything to do with it, they'd take the tapered spacer out and we'd be going at 215 mile an hour around this track. But they're doing the best that they can. And you're right. You're going to look like a fool. If you think this looked like a fool, wait till we go back to the Indy road course where we really saw what looking like a fool looks like when guys are just saying, hell with it, I'm getting 20 spots before this 90-degree turn.
I'm not even going to follow the track.
Exactly. I will make a new alternative route due to my Garmin if those things still exist, and that hasn't went under yet. But no, it was an enjoyable experience. I hope that maybe next week, and I'm excited for next week. I love California. I actually am very upset that they're tearing Fontana apart because I think that's a racer's track.
It's a great track. Yeah.
So, but in closing, I want to thank everybody for tuning in.
Well, I didn't get to give my final opinion.
Well, go ahead.
Nobody
Steve.
cared.
Oh, nobody cared? Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
Just a comment about somebody thought the racers looked like fools. And I think the only way you feel that way about today was if you are like me. There's no doubt I'm a fan.
Yeah. Well,
it's a different color. It's Napa, obviously. So, but I was bummed that the 24 car or the 9 car got knocked out. But in the big picture of thing, it was a great race. And just because my guy didn't contend today didn't damage the race. It may have damaged my, bummer. I wanted the 9 car to get a Daytona win, but overall, I thought it was a good day for NASCAR. Like I said, the season has started, and in the big picture, the fact that the season has started and we had a good race, nobody got hurt. We had a surprise finish as usual. It had everything we wanted to see if we could just abolish the grid walk.
Agreed.
If we can just abolish the grid walk. Hashtag that. So again, for you that are just now, if this is the first time you've ever watched us, we put out content all week long. We have a weekly show that will air Wednesday or Thursday night. Joe and I will make our gambling when it comes to building a FanDuel lineup and DraftKings. And I promise you, if the last 5 laps didn't happen, guys, we would have made you a poop ton of money. But unfortunately, every driver decided to wreck, and there's nothing we can do about that. We'll be a lot more consistent with Fontana, as that is not just a crapshoot. High five, Steve. And
No, I have a
then we
question.
how
much does a poop ton weigh?
A ton.
a ton.
There's an answer to
Yes.
that.
No, it's a
2,000
ton.
pounds.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's a
2,000
ton.
pounds. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a ton. Great job.
Okay.
Thanks, Steve, for interrupting my great conclusion.
No
Yeah.
problem. Sorry.
All right. So
We'll finish it.
While Steve's focused on shit, I'm actually going to wrap this up. Again, we will be with you at the end of the Fontana race. Typically, we don't have rain in Fontana, but again, the post ratio is always subject to whatever happens when it comes to the weather. And as you may know, it is very, very unpredictable at the beginning of the year, but thankfully we're on the West Coast.
I
swing, where
live
typically
out
winter
here.
is-
I live 45 minutes from the track. I can guarantee you there will be no rain.
It will 100% rain.
No,
Mark
it will
down.
rain.
No, it will not rain.
So again, all good things must come to an end. My name's Ryan Peters with Joe Spillman, Steve Risley, like Kentucky Speedway. This one